You're watching NBC10 at Issue.
Back on NBC10 at Issue, here are Villanova law professor Michael Moreland, an expert on law and religion, and Dr. Karl Benzio, founder and executive director of the Lighthouse Network, a Christian-based nonprofit offering mental health and addiction services. Thank you again. Explain to me how this all fits in. My concern is on a couple levels. One, Good News Club versus Milford. The court required the public elementary school open its limited public forum to basically a Christian group. Rosenberger versus the University of Virginia. The court required the state university to disperse student fees to a student publication that was engaged in proselytizing. The court gets involved in using public money. It says religious groups have to have access to it. Yet the other way around, this woman was not protected by a congressional law that tries to protect people who are disabled. Explain.
Well, they're really distinct issues. I mean, on the one hand, there are a line of cases that stand for the proposition that the government can't discriminate against religion, that religion has to be treated on an equal basis, say, with respect to access to schools after hours or with access to student fees, as Rosenberger held. On the other hand, just as churches don't get to tell the government who its leaders will be, the government can't tell churches who their leaders should be, and that with respect to the internal matters of a church, who its ministers will be, what they'll preach, what they'll teach, what they'll hold, the government can't interfere.
You use the word ministers. I could call anybody a minister by the definition that was used in this.
Well, and that's the issue that Chief Justice Roberts set aside in the case. He says we aren't going to set forth a test here with elaborate detail as to who is and is not a minister. They said that the employee in this case clearly was, because she had this position within the church. And that's, again, for later cases to decide, is it when someone's primary function is based in a religious office? Does it have to be an ordained clergy person? That's clearly not the case because this person wasn't. So there are a lot of cases still to be decided.
But how much freedom, as a Christian, in running a Christian ministry, in essence, how are you concerned that some other religion or extremists in your own faith could start up a church and say only people who are racist can be in this church, only people who want a certain strict fundamentalist law, and we can punish under that law within the church? Does this open the door to that, or we should not worry about that at all?
Well, I think there's always a continuum of people can, when given some power, can do some extreme and terrible things with that power. So trying to figure out, well, what are those safeguards that we can build in that are fair and equitable, but still safeguard from extreme abuses of those allocations or those power. You know, whenever you have an organization, you want to, I think part of it is trying to define how much of that organization's faith, you know, how clearly defined are those faith principles and beliefs and system as fabric of that organization. And then once you define that, well, then those people that I hire, what is their role in either teaching it didactically, role modeling it, being an example of it to the rest of the community, and then are you serving a community? Because from our stance is either a church or a ministry or units that we put together, we're actually serving a population significantly, and so they have a certain trust for that.
Has the court gone too far here? When people look at the First Amendment and the Establishment Clause, it says no, the government won't establish a religion. It won't pick a religion. And the second part is it says it will not pass a law that prohibits or inhibits the free practice of religion. Most of us interpret those things as saying, okay, it won't say that this church or that church is the church. And secondly, it'll let me worship in a way that I want, where I want, when I want. But this kind of decision is starting to go into the area of who can be hired, who can be fired, and how they're treated internally. Either of you have a concern that that's going too far?
I really don't. And Chief Justice Roberts is very clear in the early part of his opinion, looking at the background of the First Amendment and to the U.S. Constitution, that one of the overriding concerns that the framers had was that the state shouldn't boss around churches with regard to who a minister in a church is. And is that the same for you?
Yes, the state has certain responsibilities, but determining how a faith-based organization is going to exercise their faith and hire the people.
Leave it there. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate you taking the time. Good luck to you. Next, just what is the impact of religion shaping up to be in the race for president? Stay tuned.
You're watching NBC10 at Issue.